Dear brothers and sisters, through the Spirit of St. Augustine, this is a homily for 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year B. The question asked by Jesus in the Gospel passage of today about his identity indeed forms part of the message for this 24th Sunday, which is from opinion to faith. In other words, the opinions of people about Jesus' identity and Peter's confession of faith by saying that Jesus is the Messiah. This is a very important discovery, particularly as what concerns the true identity of Christ. Today, who is Jesus Christ for people? Who is Jesus Christ for each one of us? Indeed, Jesus asks you and me these very questions, and we can respond to them personally. From the readings of today, more especially the first reading, we find one of the poems written by Prophet Isaiah that concerns the suffering servant of God. But at the end of it all, it is the Lord who delivers this servant from all these sufferings. In addition, these characteristics of a suffering servant are seen and accomplished in the person of Jesus Christ as indicated in the Gospel passage of today. In a more elaborated way, the passage of today, which is the extract from St. Mark's Gospel chapter 8, forms the turning point or the springboard through which Jesus turns his direction towards Jerusalem. But before going to Jerusalem, he enters Galilee for the last time, then afterwards he begins his journey towards Jerusalem. While in this pagan territory, he announces his passion, death, and resurrection. What can this passage teach us, especially as far as Jesus' identity is concerned? There are three messages that we can formulate from this passage. One, from public opinions to a faith decision. Two, the true identity of Jesus Christ. And lastly, to take up our crosses and follow him. First and foremost, there is a downward movement as far as the question that Jesus asks is concerned, that is, from public opinions to a faith decision or confession of faith. As a matter of fact, many people had different notions about the identity of Jesus Christ. This can be seen concretely from the first part of St. Mark's Gospel, that is witnessed by the disciples who struggle to discover the true identity of Jesus Christ. Therefore, a simple and appropriate way is being with him. Some of the people who didn't grasp the true identity of Jesus Christ are found especially in this very gospel. For example, some said he blasphemes, Mark chapter 2, verse 7, or even he was considered as possessed by the devil, Mark chapter 3, verse 22. However, at Caesarea Philippi, Jesus asks his disciples, who do people say that he was? Then what his disciples said about him. Here, before starting the journey to Jerusalem, Jesus wants his disciples to understand who he is, his real identity. More interestingly, Peter responded correctly by saying that he is the Messiah, the anointed one of God. Nevertheless, when Jesus announced his first passion, death, and resurrection, Peter was the first one to deny his passion as well as other disciples too. Why? Because how can the Anointed One suffer in such a way? Little did they know the way that leads to resurrection and victory is through suffering. Here, the actions of Peter represents any man and any woman in this world, because without God, man falls, but with the forgiveness of God, he rises again. In our daily life, many times we have crucifying choices, but we are called to soldier on. Are we able to confess our faith like Peter? Can our faith be seen or witnessed through our works, as St. James puts it in the second reading? The second message that comes out from this passage is the true identity of Jesus Christ. Peter, together with his companions, discovered the true identity of Christ because they had faith in him and they were with him. How can we discover the true identity of Jesus Christ today? By having faith that is accompanied by works, and of course being with Jesus Christ himself through prayers, meditation, and contemplation. The last lesson that we can get from this passage is to take up our crosses and follow him. After having talked about his passion, death, and resurrection, Peter reacted negatively, and Jesus takes the opportunity to teach them about the cost of discipleship. Let us take our crosses and follow him. What we experience in our daily life is that some people are tempted to think that it is better to leave the cross and follow Christ, but that is not the case. He tells us clearly to take up the cross and follow him, because he was victorious. We too shall be victorious. That is why in the first reading we heard about the suffering servant of God who endures all trials, but at the end he would come out victorious. To conclude, on this 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time B, we are called to move from opinions about Jesus Christ to the discovery of his true identity, and even more importantly, confess that he is the Messiah, the Anointed One of God. Finally, we are invited to take up our crosses and follow him in our daily life. Amen. Have a blessed Sunday.